Welcome back to another episode of A.IdlePodcast, the podcast where I give a weekly book review. This week we're looking at How to Write Short, Wordcraft for Fast Times by Roy Peter Clark. This book is essentially a guide on shorthand writing. It gives you the importance of brevity, where to spot short writing in the present day, and it acknowledges examples from the past with previous poems, tweets, and stories. It also includes a few different activities that promote engagement with the audience, so that was one pretty cool thing that you can look forward to. Now, Roy Peter Clark is a writer. You probably have heard about him. He's currently with the Poynter Institute, but he's more famously known for writing the book Writing Tools, 50 Essential Strategies for Every Writer in 2006. Now this book, however, How to Write Short, was published in 2013, so this is a little more recent. So for a book that is on writing, there's going to be an emphasis on the writing style and overall structure of the book. So we do get a short introduction, emphasis on short, and we also have a book that is segmented into two sections. And the first section is titled How to Write Short, the second section being How to Write Short with a Purpose. Obviously, you need the first one in order to get to writing with a purpose in a short way. Now, within each section, there are very brief chapters, and I found that this helped me read through the book because the chapters are maybe 3 pages long, maybe 4 or 5, and it gives you the quick little lesson that he wants you to learn, but it also emphasizes the point that he actually does practice what he is preaching within writing shorthand. Now, at the end of each chapter are grace notes, and that really is where the activities come into play. That's where the engagement happens with the audience. So these may be a few questions where he challenges you to utilize the information that he gives you in that chapter and kind of write it down in your own journal. Or if there was an example given in the chapter, he encourages you to come up with another example. So it's not necessarily you working off of a blank easel, but it encourages growth in implementing these strategies on your own. Now, lastly, when it comes to the writing style, I just want to note that throughout the book, he does weave in why it's necessary and why it's relevant to learn how to write short. And that's throughout each chapter, throughout each paragraph. We're getting examples of present day events or areas of communication where this is necessary or where this is being used currently. Now, the relevancy of this book is broken down into both themes. The first theme is communication, obviously. So we're talking about written communication here, but you'll see how you can also turn these techniques into a bit of verbal communication as well. Now, of course, we would be remiss not to mention social media when it comes to communication. And this book is a little bit dated, but it does touch on, for example, Twitter. Now, at the time, Twitter had a 140 character limit. Now it has a 280 character limit, but it's still relevant to the message, being that you have only a small amount of space to tweet out to the world whatever it is that you may want to get out there. Being mindful of that. And I'll even throw Instagram into that. That's become a bigger thing lately here. And even though it's picture based, you're able to write captions, and they can be a little bit longer than the 280 character length on Twitter. But keeping in mind that if we're all being honest, no one wants to read a 4-paragraph Instagram caption. Okay, so let's all keep it short. Let's take his advice and implement it, okay? Now, also in the news, if you're not someone that is on social media, good for you. That's awesome. But even in physical newspapers, what catches your eye first are concise headlines. And so it's the wording that is exaggerated, or maybe it's bolded, or it's just larger than the rest. Those words are strategically placed to capture your attention. If you want to take it to a more practical standpoint, when it comes to professionalism, you're having correspondence with your coworkers every day, all day. That can be in the form of emails or presentations or speeches. I did take, I cannot remember if it was a communications or an English course in college, and it was on presentations. And there was actually a specific point where the professor told us that if you have a lot of wording on your PowerPoint when you're giving a speech or a presentation, people are not going to want to read it, you know? Some of them already don't really want to be in class, and the rest of them that are trying to follow along, they're not going to take the time to read 5-6 paragraphs on one PowerPoint slide. So just keeping in mind that this translates into your professional job, whatever that may be, and using some of these strategies, you can use this in everyday life, you know, to make it, or to make yourself look better, you know, in front of your boss or your coworkers. And then again, with the personal lives that we all carry, I think text messages are probably the best example of shorthand text. Obviously, you know, we shorten words. Now we have emoticons and emojis and things like that. But just being mindful of what you text, and maybe if a long paragraph isn't necessary, kind of condensing that into a few words that get the point across, and it's something that someone will remember. And this, of course, all translates into verbal. So, like with a speech, for example, it probably would be better for you to give yourself points and not full paragraphs to memorize, and then you can go from there. That's just a tip. But now the second theme, and probably the most important, and the reason for this book, is the fact that attention spans are changing. Mentioned in this book is a study that happened at Technical University of Denmark, where they concluded that the collective global attention span is narrowing. So we all, I think, are aware of this. Even if you look at the changes in social media over the years, for example, TikTok is now a thing. And I think those videos are they're very short. They're seconds long. And sometimes even then you feel like that's too long. I know one good example is if I'm watching something on YouTube and I get an ad, and the ad says it's a minute and 30 seconds, I'm kind of pissed, okay? Because that's too long. I can't skip it. But then when you think about it, it's like, that's really not that long. We're just not really interested in looking at an ad for more than 5 seconds, if we're all being honest. So if whatever it is that you're advertising doesn't come across in those 5 seconds, then I've already ignored it. I've put it out of my mind. This also, we're talking about ads and marketing. This is probably the main point that a lot of companies are focusing on when it comes to consumerism, is the marketability of a product. For example, product titles. What is this product called? If it has a crazy name, I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. Some people or some companies go out of their way to give products wild out there names because that kind of generates some sort of publicity. But if you're being a logical shopper, you're paying attention to things like that. Or even book titles. I picked this book up because it had the word right in it. Some people did not pick this book up because it had the word right in it, being mindful of who you're trying to attract. And then even taking it a step further, if we're talking about nutrition facts, for example, if I turn a product over and I can't pronounce the first ingredient, I'm probably not going to buy it. And that's even after I've recognized what this is, what the product name is, and then I look at the back and I don't know what this means. Yeah, I'm not into it. That also goes back to something that he mentioned that I want to reiterate for everyone. So he does talk about the fact that, let's just say NASA goes on some type of mission and they come back and they publish their findings in a report that is hundreds of pages long, and it's filled with words that you and we don't regularly use, space NASA lingo, so we don't know what it means. I would say after maybe page 5, you're going to get fed up and you're going to stop reading it. And this limits the flow of information. So understanding that sometimes the more you write, the less likely the message is to hit the person intended. Also, language comes into play with that as well. Choosing your words wisely and choosing your words so that your audience will understand it. That's just my little spiel on that. Now, obviously, for me, the intention was clear with this book. I believe the intention was to attract a specific audience of writers, of people who may be lacking adequate written communication skills, and they can probably benefit from this book the most. I know reading some of this stuff, as someone who just enjoys writing, and I do it every day, I take pride in what I actually write. Some of it made a lot of sense to me, and I was like, okay, I thought everyone knew this. But after reading some of the emails I get, a lot of people can really benefit from just reading maybe one chapter of this. But also attracting social media users. It has become as imperative as ever for everyone to really think twice. Look at what it is you are tweeting, okay, before you tweet it, whether it's to avoid embarrassment on a specific grammar error or something like that, or looking at the implications of the language that you are using. Be mindful of what it is you are tweeting. Understand that there's only so much that you can fit into one tweet. And so if someone only sees that, what are they going to take away from it? I think I don't want to say everyone who uses Twitter, but everyone who believes that whatever it is they're tweeting is important needs to read this book, because it doesn't matter if you're right or not. If you're not able to communicate what it is you want to say, then it's irrelevant. It's not going to get there. And lastly, I would say a lot of entertainment professionals, and I'm solely probably speaking about like news anchors and things like that. Lately, they are able to break stories on Twitter. Of course, there's a link, to get to the full written article, but they need to know what type of headline to tweet in order to attract the correct people, but also portray whatever the information is accurately. Now, in addition to attracting a specific audience, I believe the main point of this is how to command an audience in a few words. Whoever your audience is, it may just be your friends when you're texting. It may be a board of executives, or it may be, if you're a celebrity, the whole world. Understanding the weight of your words, but also kind of condensing it, because everyone's attention span is very short now. And lastly, it is very important for everyone to get to the point, whether you are talking, texting, emailing, or on the phone. This is my pet peeve. To me, I know what I want to say, and I know the shortest way to get that across, okay? Going through paragraphs and paragraphs of a speech to ask one question, it really is unnecessary, okay? This is probably my favorite quote ever. You've probably heard this, and it is repeated a few times in this book by Professor William Strunk. Omit needless words. A lot of people talk just to hear themselves talk. Please get to the point, okay? Because sometimes if your point is at the end of a five-page essay, and you're writing this on Twitter or on Instagram, no one's going to get there, okay? Because they're going to get sick of reading nothing and filler. Just get to the point. A few sentences will do. Sometimes one sentence, sometimes 5 words. Please just get to the point. We don't have time. We also don't have the attention span, but... Now, the reception of this book, it's pretty surprising in the fact that I didn't really think you could really come up with any negatives of this book. I think it's very informative and educational. However, there weren't a lot of bad reviews by any means, but the few ones that I saw that were like giving it an average rating or so, they said that essentially this is more of an analysis on the effectiveness of short writing, and it's not really a how-to. Now, this is why I caution people on buying how-to books. And anytime I see a book that is titled How to Do Whatever, I kind of cringe and I kind of step away, if I'm being honest, because I don't believe that I can master whatever it is that this author has mastered through reading one book. You know, obviously it takes practice, and even with this book, it encourages you to keep your own writing book and almost go out into the world and teach yourself and find your own examples in order to perfect this process. And so I understand the disappointment of reading this book and recognizing that you don't know how to compose a specific short writing or how to condense down your words. So that's understandable. But again, I mean, if you go out of your way to analyze your words, whether it's an email, just reread your email and see what's not important, see what's useless, and see where you could maybe fit in words with less syllables, not to dumb it down, but so they're able to read through it faster, but it's still effective. And then just practicing kind of the activities and the guides that he gives you. And again, some people feel like it's a book just for writers. I don't think that. I think a lot of people can ultimately benefit from this book. But again, if you're someone who you're not really into writing like that, you probably will walk right past this book. But I think it's certainly helpful for anyone that uses social media. So that's pretty much all of us at this point. Or if you just want to strengthen your written communication skills, this is certainly something to go for. Now, for me, I enjoyed this book. If you can't tell by now, I believe it's going to be some sort of a continuous reference for me, just because there are so many different little activities to practice. And I think this is going to be one of those books that I just carry around forever, and it's going to end up tattered and old, but eventually, once I add my little notes to it, I'll be able to reference my work as well as his. So I'm excited for that. I think it promotes active reading. So one thing that I believe Clark does well is not only is he telling you what shorthand writing is, but he's giving you examples, literally giving you different tweets or different quotes or poems, and is encouraging you to try to find short writing yourself. If you're picking up a newspaper, if you see a tweet that has 6 words in it and it got the point across, you know, you can recognize that. And so just going out in the world with a sharper eye, I'm all for that, if as you guys all know. I think this book is something that specifically small business owners can benefit from, just because it's hard getting your business out there if you're family owned or if you're just someone that just started in the pandemic. And we all know that the internet and social media can be a very good platform, but in order to get your product out there, you have to know the way to communicate with the public. This is a great start for people that may not be as strong on the marketing standpoint, because this will show you how to put those words out there in the internet in order to reach as many people as possible and be as effective as possible. Coming on that point of marketing, I think this also reinforced a lot of my college marketing classes when it comes to capturing an audience and how to get someone's attention with a product. You know, how do you design a specific product? What do you put in the catchphrase or, you know, whatever their quote may be that they use in every commercial. So it's just funny how real life actually reinforces some of the stuff I learned in school. So I'm glad my money was spent well, apparently. And lastly, I would reread this book 10 times out of 10. I knew when I was not even halfway through that this was something I was going to reread. And I'm probably going to go through it chapter by chapter and again, just go in and do those activities and do them over and over until I'm comfortable with them. So I really enjoyed it. I got this book actually from the secondhand bookstore that I go to. And I want to say it was either $5 or a little bit less than that. And I certainly recommend any other works by Clark because he clearly knows what he's talking about. And more than ever, it's very imperative for all of us to understand the weight of written communication as well as how far it can take you. So yeah, great book. I definitely recommend it. Next week, I'm unsure of what episode I'll be doing next week, but I'm reading a few different books, so we'll see. Thank you for tuning in. I hope everyone has a lovely weekend, and I will see you all next week. Thank you.